So in the thing, if you occupy a country, they don't get the full rights, but you still occupy them and control them. What do we call that? There's a word for that. There's a word for all of these things. We're just not allowed to say it, right? So if you say that you're going to kill all the people in a place, or you're going to move them out systematically as a function of their ethnicity to another place where they happen to speak the same language, you destroy all their universities and their hospitals, you render their homes unlivable, there's a word for that. It's called a genocide.
Genocide, absolutely.
Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, an Oxford scholar, Columbia-trained physician who rebuilt Detroit's health department after bankruptcy at the age of 30. He then lost to Gretchen Whitmer by 22 points in 2018. He's now endorsed by Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, and other establishment Democrats. He has the highest unfavorable rating of any Democrat in this primary, and prediction markets believe he just might win anyways. I sat down with him for 42 minutes. The conversation went where the conversation went, and that's honestly a very good thing. We talked about AIPAC, Medicare for all, the genocide in Gaza, and why his tax dollars shouldn't go towards bombing children. He also spoke on what Bill Clinton told him at his graduation and why he believes JD Vance has the charisma of a doorknob and why he thinks he's going to win Trump voters in Macomb County. We didn't get everything that I had planned, the pressure questions, the Khamenei audio, the Temple Israel statement, the Hasan Piker rally. Those are slated for the follow-up. This is the United States Senate candidate on camera, no script, no handlers, no teleprompter, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, running for the most consequential Senate seat in the country, Michigan, the state that decides whether Democrats either hold the chamber or concede power to the Republicans. He called AIPAC disqualifying, called the war in Gaza a genocide, called his family's country's use of American tax dollars some bullshit, told JD Vance's wife to leave him. He also told me that he believes that he's going to win Trump voters in Macomb County. We sat down for 42 minutes. This is what happened. This is the Allen analysis.
Dr. Abdul?
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I want to get you to react to some breaking news here. Just yesterday, we have 44 Democrats on the resolution committee who were basically talked down by two Democratic presidential nominees to cancel a resolution to condemn AIPAC. What are your thoughts on this?
Frankly, I think it's just disqualifying. You know, if you're running for president and you think that the most important thing you can do is squash at the party level an effort to condemn a super PAC that exists specifically to align American foreign policy with a foreign government,
right?
What are you doing, right? Like, because I think that the president of the United States should be interested in the foreign policy of the United States being in service of the people of the United States rather than in service of foreign government. So I'd love to understand who they are. I think we should all understand who they are.
Right.
These kinds of decisions should not be made in private. And, you know, if you're going to squash that at the party level, then how can I trust you to make sure that our foreign policy aligns with our interests at the presidential level?
Correct. So that's kind of the question I had is, who are these two candidates? Because I know there's about 4 potential nominees for the Democratic Party.
I feel like there's like 157 of them, but everybody and their mom's about to run for president. But
that's true. It's going to be a tough race.
It's going to be a tough race, but also that's what I think the American public deserves.
Right.
I mean, like we these contests are supposed to be a contest of ideas.
Right.
Too often the way that the party has worked, frankly, the way that our political system has worked, is that there are a couple of gatekeepers who get to decide who gets to break out. And we've seen the folks who run despite what the party elders or the gatekeepers say perform pretty well. So, you know, President Barack Obama, he was not supposed to run for president, right? There was a nominee that was supposed to be the one, and that didn't work out. And then you think about after that, right, we had a process where Bernie Sanders decided to run against the establishment, shocked everyone, right? Ran twice. The first time, you know, the party did everything they could to lock him out. The second time, you watched all of the more moderate or establishment corporate Democrats decide that at one point they were all going to give it to who ultimately became President Biden.
Right.
And then in 2024, President Biden couldn't read the fact that, you know, his time was up. until it was too late. And then we had, 107 days behind the vice president. So like we need an open process where we can actually have a real debate of ideas. I think the electorate has shifted tremendously. People are sick and tired of being told what they can and can't believe. And I think the issue of the pushback from corporate politicians on Medicare for all, the issue of the genocide in Gaza being subsidized by our tax dollars, all of those things have opened up a big set of questions that Democrats are asking. Here's the wild thing. I'm running for U.S. Senate in Michigan, so it's a small microcosm of broader politics. There is such a divide between what the party establishment says are the ideas that Democrats should fight for and what Democratic voters want their politicians to fight for. Mm-hmm. And when we win this race, it's going to be because we are listening to voters about what voters want. There's a survey that came out earlier this week that showed that among Democratic voters, the support for Israel and the role that Israel has played in our foreign policy and the role that they've had in this war that we shouldn't be fighting and the role that they've had in a genocide being paid for by our tax dollars, all of that, you have 20% approval among Democratic voters?
Right. So 80% of the party want accountability from AIPAC and Israel.
Yeah.
Which is why this is such a huge shock, because the predominant majority of the base wants our leaders to hold AIPAC and Israel to some accountability.
Yeah.
But the donors apparently is who these people represent over the voters.
Well, it's one donor in particular, right? AIPAC exists specifically to create a bipartisan consensus in our politics that we shall not oppose the interests of Benjamin Netanyahu and the state of Israel, right? And let's be clear, this is not about opposing anybody. It's about standing up for equal rights to dignity, self-determination, and peace for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis. Right. And that's the thing about it, is you don't need to hate anyone to have love for the Palestinian people. That's the crazy thing. Everybody's like, well, you care about the Palestinian people, so you must hate. I'm like, I don't hate anybody.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Is that I love everyone.
That's kind of the issue. If you support the Palestinians, then you're accused of supporting Hamas. And if you criticize the Israelis, the Knesset or the Jewish overlords that run the country, then you're somehow an anti-Semite for trying to hold them accountable.
And that's the thing, is that it's not because they're Jewish. This is the thing about it, is any country that is using my money to kill babies, I got some opinions about.
We should be.
Right. And that's the thing about it, is people are like, well, you must hate. I'm like, no. Don't get it twisted. If you're using my money rather than to provide good schools for my kids or to provide health care for my people here in Michigan, if you're using my money to kill other people, I'm going to have some problems with that.
Right.
That's why I got problems with the Trump administration.
Right.
That's why I got problems with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's why I got problems with the state of Israel. Right. So, this is about principle. And I'll be clear about it, right? I've been clear that I do not think our tax dollars should subsidize foreign militaries. Let's start with Egypt, where my family came from.
Right.
Right? Because I watched as that money, my taxpayer dollars, my parents' taxpayer dollars at the time, were being used to cement the power of a military dictatorship on its own people in my name.
Wow.
Some bullshit. So and you say that and people are like, how could you say that? I'm like, because I do not believe in the manufactured consensus that you all spend money to tell me that I should believe in. I'm so sorry. And you know what? Who else doesn't believe it? The vast majority of voters, which is why everyone is losing their damn mind about the idea that I would campaign with somebody who agrees with me on that point. That doesn't mean I agree with them on everything,
right?
But I do agree with them on that. And everybody loses their mind. They're like, wait a second. We can't allow that perspective to get to those people because they agree. They might just turn out and vote. And that's what they're afraid of.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you're afraid of a group of voters, go ahead and tell me how pro-democracy you are. Because the last I checked is that democracy was about going out to voters, having a conversation with them, and then asking them to vote for you.
Right.
Isn't that the way the system's supposed to work?
Well, yeah, you're supposed to listen to your constituents and learn from them and figure out how to best serve your constituents. But it seems like there's a huge disconnect today with the Democratic Party in listening to what their voters need and want. And that's kind of where the Republicans or the Conservative Party excel, because they're actively on Twitter, they're actively on the internet, they listen to things, they want to know what their constituents are thinking. I think one of the closest people in the Democratic Party that does anything close to this is Ro Khanna. And he's hugely successful because of this, right? So I think that's the biggest disconnect with the Democratic Party. But I did prepare some questions for you.
We didn't even get to the questions. Oh, man. Wow.
No, we have not yet. All right. So you came to politics through public health, rebuilding Detroit's health department post-bankruptcy. Huge feat. What did that experience teach you about how government actually fails people versus how politicians say it fails people?
Yeah. So the Detroit Health Department had been shut down when the city was going through bankruptcy, and the state came in, enforced emergency management. That wasn't about making sure that the operations of the city functioned properly. It was more about making sure that the city met its balance books. So they shut down a 185-year-old health department, oldest health department in the entire city of Detroit, in a city with a higher infant mortality rate than my father's native Egypt.
Wow.
And I was hired to rebuild it. And that in and of itself, the idea that you'd shut down a health department in the largest majority Black city in the whole country says everything you need to know about the priorities of our governance. That number one. Number two, to get stuff done, it turns out you really have to go to the people and have a conversation about what it is you want to get done, get their buy-in to do it, deliver on that, and then based on that, talk about what next we want to get done. Now, we did things like put glasses on kids, take on big corporate polluters, organize with local communities to do it. We had every school, daycare, and Head Start tested for lead in the water after the Flint water crisis, which was also caused by emergency management, by the way, in the city of Flint.
Wow. Have that been resolved?
So on the pathway to resolution, it's good news that they've gotten the leaded pipes out. The water is not what it used to be. But, there's a lot of cleanup after a disaster like that, people are still feeling the effects. Kids who had been exposed to lead, the consequences of which take a long time to resolve. The other thing you learn is that there's a lot that legislators think they know.
Right.
But most of them have never actually done the nitty-gritty work of making sure government delivers for folks on the ground.
Right.
Because here's the thing, if you're a legislator and you want to work on a particular issue, you can just be like, that's not really my issue. I'll vote when the issue comes up. Whereas when you run a health department, you got to show up every day. Like, WIC checks got to go out, right? Vaccines got to get put in arms.
Of course.
You got to make sure that the restaurant is a clean, healthy place. If somebody gets sick, you got to go investigate. And that's where the rubber hits the road on government. And we need more legislators who understand that and think through how the work they do is going to be perceived and engaged with by the people who actually have to make government work every day. And that's the perspective that I'm trying to bring to it, that I think is just sorely missing. And you can see it in the legislation that gets written.
Yeah. Huge disconnect. You lost to Whitmer by 22 points in 2018. What did you learn from that loss that you're applying now, and what's actually different about this particular race?
Yeah. Well, there's a third candidate in the race, right? So we ended up taking about 30% of the vote. He ended up taking about 17, and then Whitmer took the lion's share. I had never intended to run for office in my life. You don't go do an MD and a PhD to go run for office. It's not the plan. The first time anybody told me I should run for office was at my college graduation. I was the valedictorian at my class at the University of Michigan.
Oh, very nice.
And I had the privilege of giving the student commencement speech. But the main speaker was a guy named Bill Clinton. So I give my speech. Clinton gives his speech, calls me out in his speech. My immigrant dad claps for me for the first time in my whole life. I didn't even get to see it. And then after the speech, he comes up to me. He's like, son, why are you going to medical school? Which is not a question anybody asks you when you go to medical school. I'm like, I'm Brown and Nissen. It's what we do, man. But I'm like, look, I love people and I love science and this is how I want to serve. He's like, that's great, but you got a gift for communicating. Maybe someday you'll run for office. Wow. And I literally laughed in his face. Wow. I was like, Mr. President, did you see my name? My foreign ass 11-letter name?
Wow.
All right, he's got sounds that come out of parts of people's throats they don't know they have. My whole name is Abdul Rahman. That's just the first one.
Wow.
All right, Abdul Rahman Muhammad Sayed. That is not a name made for politics. And he kind of chuckled. That was 2007. 2008, I watched Barack Hussein Obama run for and win the presidency. And look, it was the first time I ever saw myself in a politician. I'm like, look, his dad immigrated from Africa. My dad immigrated from a different part of Africa. He had mixed parents. I was raised by mixed parents. He had a funny name. I got a funny name. He was tall and skinny. I'm short and thick. But I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. I filed that away, went off, did my career.
Right.
Trump gets elected in 2017. And I'm like, you know what? All right, if that dumbass can run for and win office.
Anybody, really.
Yeah, anybody can, right? I had this bad advice from a former president. I was like, I'm going to go big or go home. I went big and then I went home.
Wow.
But we earned 340,000 votes. I got outspent 7-1 in that race.
Wow.
The other guy who ran, he spent $12 million of his own money running to pretend to be me, and I still lapped him.
Pretended to be you?
I mean, he ran on my message, right? This is a guy who was fanboying on Marco Rubio 6 months before he declared. He literally asked consultants, should I run as Democrat or Republican? And he was like, all right, here's my lane. And he just spent $12 million pretending to be me on my actual politics. So all that is to say, like, that's the other part of that story.
Right.
What did I learn? Number one, don't be 32 and never run for office before, right? Solve that one. 41 with 2 kids and a mortgage now, right? The second thing I learned is that, I don't know, I was real precious about the critique. I wanted everybody to agree with me about why the problem existed,
Right.
rather than what we could do about it. And this time around, I'm just a lot more focused. I don't really care how you get there. I want you to believe that you deserve health care. I don't care how you get there. I want you to believe that your tax dollars should be spent on you, not dropping a bomb on somebody else's kid. I don't care how you get there. I want you to believe that billionaires should pay their fair share so that all of our kids can have nice things, right? So all of that is to say, I'm just a lot more focused on that. And then the real big third thing that happened, frankly, I just had kids. And there's something about kids that put a patina on your soul, in the sense that, like, if your kid comes to your bed in the middle of the night, pisses your bed, and then has a whole tantrum about it, it's just not fair, right? Like, you're out there, you're like trying to clean them up, trying to clean up your bed. It's the middle of the night, and the whole time you're more worried about their feelings rather than yours. Think about it. If somebody else came and pissed in your bed, you'd be like, what the hell did you do? Piss in my bed? And you have the audacity to be mad about it?
But as a parent,
you just realize that sometimes the world's not fair, and it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what I want you to feel is safe, comfortable, and secure. And it made me so much better at being able to communicate, because I'm just less interested in defending myself. This whole time, everybody's calling me up. You're like, you okay? They're really coming after you. I'm like, it's not about me, man. I've had a decent life. Like, I'm so, like, my life is an accident of history, honestly. Like, I'm playing with house money at this point. Like, I was supposed to drive a cab in Egypt. That's what my cousins did. Like, that's not my life. So I'm not trying to defend me. I'm trying to defend all these people who've gotten a bum deal because we make dumb decisions as a government. So, he's been clarifying, and I'm really grateful. Honestly, I ran, I lost. Obviously, you don't want to lose in a big election, but I think I grew up quite a bit, and I would be a much better leader now than I would have been at 32 in a race like that. So, I'm a person of faith, and God has a way of giving you the things that you need when you can handle them, not before that.
Yeah, my grandmother would say things never happened before the time.
All right. That's right.
So your podcast, America Dissected, on Crooked Media, gave you a platform for years. How do you draw the line between being a media personality and being a serious legislator? Do you think the media to politics pipeline produces better or worse candidates?
So I'd be a little bit more concerned if all of my background was in media. But, my background is in public service. And I happened to find a platform to be able to explain what was happening at a time where people really wanted explanations in the area of public health. The podcast really took off in the COVID pandemic, where people were like searching for information. And I happened to be in a position where I could say, okay, like, I'm a former health director. I can explain what's happening in language that people can understand. So media is about, I think, creating a space for a really important conversation about the important things. I would argue that being a good legislator is in part about the craft of building legislation, but it's also about being able to explain what's happening and what you're doing about it. So I actually think anybody who's serious about the work of legislating has to be serious about the work of persuasion,
Right.
which means that you really have to be good at engaging in the media and doing it on issues that are A, sometimes hard to understand, and B, that most folks find boring, right? So like, I would argue that it was really, really good prep for the work in politics, because you've got to be able to persuade people about what you're trying to do on things that most people don't spend much time thinking about, and that can be kind of boring and kind of arcane. And so if you can make that interesting, right, then it's important to be able to command attention so that you can actually convey what you're trying to do and persuade people that it's the right thing to do. I think one of the problems with politicians is that we've given up on the art of persuasion, right? Like, people don't go talk to people they don't think are going to agree with them. Like, that's actually exactly the opposite. You should go talk to people who you think are not going to agree with you.
Agreed.
Because you got to win them over. So, I got a lot of practice doing that, which I'm really grateful for.
Yeah. Some of the most influential figures of our lifetime were some of the best orators. So
Ronald Reagan was a media personality, and I don't agree with him on much, but he was very, very good at being able to make an argument for his position and win people over on what he wanted to do. I mean, I got folks, I still who don't agree with Reagan on anything, and they're like, I miss the Reagan years. I'm like, what? Why? They're like, I don't know, he just had this steady, calming persona.
Yeah.
And he had great hair,
Yeah.
right? Which, you know, at the end of the day, I got very little going for me in politics. A friend of mine told me, he's like, you know, you got great politics and Republican hair. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it.
You literally wrote the book on Medicare for all, but most Senate Democrats don't support it. If you win, what's your actual legislative strategy? Is this a governing priority or more of a negotiating position?
It's a governing priority. Okay. We are in a moment right now where the sum total of medical debt is greater than the GDP of half of U.S. states, $225 billion.
Wow.
The average family has a deductible of $4,500. That, when you couple that with the median income for a family of four, means that just to get the health insurance that you already paid for, and every other paycheck, you're going to have to forego a whole paycheck. That's the situation we're in right now. So how do we get there? My job isn't to convince 99 other people. My job is to convince 350 million people that they deserve it, who voted for all of us. That's how we win. Again, you can't be allergic to persuading people. We got a winning message. And if you don't believe me, think about this. When Donald Trump came down that ridiculous golden escalator in 2015, nobody cared about immigration.
Golden escalator.
That thing, man. And he proceeded to use the issue of immigration and kept talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And now he's using immigration to destroy the whole Constitution. That's what ICE is. So what if you actually are talking about something that actually is actually an issue and you're willing to keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it? I think we can get it done. The problem is too many Democrats want it the easy way. And even worse, they're taking money from the same corporations who don't want us to have Medicare for all because their paycheck exists on the other side of making sure that we don't have it. So, you know, I'm willing to go have that conversation all up and down my state, frankly, up and down this country, until we finally guarantee every single person in this country Medicare for all. If I do nothing else in public service, I just want everybody in this country to have health care.
Very noble cause. Do you take corporate PAC?
Never have, never will.
Do you pledge to never?
Never.
Never?
Never.
So walk me through the math now. How do you fund Medicare for all and without a tax increase on the middle class? And be specific, more numbers.
Yeah. So just remember, we already pay for healthcare now.
Right.
We pay 19 cents on the dollar for every dollar spent in the entire economy on healthcare. We already pay for it. And we pay for it like a tax. So if you are a W-2 employee, who eats first? FICA, right? That is the Federal Insurance Collections Agency. Okay? That's your taxes. After Uncle Sam eats, who eats next? Insurance company. And your premium. It just gets taken off the top.
Wow. So
insurance company eats before you eat. So we already pay for it. Now imagine you could reduce that cost and it just comes off the top. What people don't appreciate is how much they have to pay for healthcare right now. So imagine you lose that, and instead of buying an insurance CEO yacht, right, you are now paying for healthcare that is there for you your whole life. The moment you are born to the moment you pass away after a long, healthy life at 120 years old. That's the trade-off. Even more so, though, is that because it doesn't rely on you paying an insurance CEO, think about what would happen if you couple that with a billionaire wealth tax. You know how much money, if you just taxed billionaires, how much money you could unlock? Trillions of dollars that would go to helping to pay for healthcare for everybody.
So I was on the Michael Knowles show, The Bar Fight, and that was actually my argument. My argument is that America practices strict capitalism for the country's poorest, yet open socialism for the country's wealthiest.
Good man.
You know, but his remarks were, you know, the billionaires pay for everything. I don't know how, but that was his remark.
You know how billionaires live? They don't actually pay their money. You know what they do? They borrow money off of the fact that they're billionaires.
Right.
And then they report a negative income.
It's a loan. So it's not revenue or income. They can't get taxed on it.
Exactly. They're just like, I just took a loan, man. I'm like, you know, I'm slumming it.
It's so sad. It's like, you know, I don't have an asset. I can't be taxed, but then they use the same asset to get a loan, which cannot be taxed also.
Exactly. And they play this game where they borrow in one place and then they spend in another. And they're always doing it. Wow. Or they just continue to accumulate. It is easier to make a second billion in this country than to make a first million.
Wow.
And that's a problem. So to me, I'm just like, listen, man, like, what if I tax a billionaire their wealth at 8%? You know what they still are?
Still a billionaire.
Still a fucking billionaire. You know, your kids are going to be rich. It's okay. Like, you're going to be okay. So like, it's funny to me because the guy you were talking to, I bet is not a billionaire.
Michael? Oh yeah, no, Michael is not a billionaire.
So part of me is just like, bro, why you out here like trying to defend billionaires?
Yeah, I mean, Michael knows, his he works with Ben Shapiro on that whole
That tracks. That tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, great time though, great people.
I'm sure. Look, I mean, like, and I would love to come on. Michael, if you're watching, have me on. I would love to ask you personally why you want to defend billionaires more than make sure your kid gets to go to a good school. So, I'm happy to have that conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime, in any place, in any venue, in any language that I speak.
You should take him up on that offer, Michael, for watching this.
I'm right here.
The Trump administration pulled ACA subsidies, and as a result, premiums are spiking. In the short term, what's your emergency plan for Michiganders losing coverage right now? Not in the future, but today.
Today, yeah. Look, we've got to full on repeal the One Big Ugly Bill Act.
Yeah.
And I want to run that play in reverse, right?
Yeah.
So what do? They cut taxes on the richest people and then cut subsidies for healthcare for the poorest people.
Yep.
I'm going to run that play backwards. Let's raise taxes on the richest people so we can give healthcare to everyone else.
But isn't that just so messed up? I mean, since the 70s, we've heard this trickle-down economics nonsense, and it doesn't work.
Has it aimed on you? I'm still waiting on my lexical.
It still has not trickled on anyone but the billionaires. So for Trump to come and say, well, this big, supposedly beautiful bill, which is really a big ugly bill, as you say it is supposed to cut taxes for those people, but also all the subsidies that make it so that we could live as dignified human beings are being erased and removed, is very appalling, to say the least.
It is morally bankrupt. And here's the crazy thing. If you actually analyze debt in this country, the national debt, it always goes down under Democrats and always goes up under Republicans. You know why?
I wonder why.
Republicans cut revenue and then they fight wars. Now look what Donald Trump did.
That's exactly what he did.
Cuts revenue, fights wars. And like, ask yourself who the wars benefit. We always think, we're like, well, it doesn't benefit anyone. It's like, actually, it benefits a lot of people. Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, anybody who makes a tank or a bomb.
Lockheed Martin,
the country of Israel. They're all making out just nice. I mean, Israel is planning to annex southern Lebanon now, right? After they turn it into the next Gaza.
Yeah, I read something. Was it 10%? Not to cut
15% of the country of Lebanon. They are clearing down, and they've already said that they are interested in annexing. It's funny when you say that, people are like, well, there's not verified reporting. I'm like, it was reported in Haaretz.
Yeah, we could all see it. It's so sad to see because, you have on one end they're telling us, well, Israel is not trying to annex this land, but we see it. We see it. And
the downside, the other side of annexation is if they occupy it, then by definition, it's apartheid. So if you occupy a country, they don't get the full rights, but you still occupy them and control them. What do we call that? There's a word for that. There's a word for all of these things. We're just not allowed to say it, right? So if you say that you're going to kill all the people in a place, or you're going to move them out systematically as a function of their ethnicity to another place where they happen to speak the same language, you destroy all their universities and their hospitals, you render their homes unlivable, there's a word for that. It's called a genocide.
Genocide, absolutely.
Or if you just hold onto them, you don't give them equal access to political representation, but you've sat on them and you've controlled the flow of all of their resources, what do we call that? It's called apartheid. Or you just take over part of the country, right? That's called annexation. But it seems as though we're not allowed to use the same words for the action if it is being perpetrated by a particular country.
Right. So we're not allowed to restrain Israel, apparently.
No, but we actually have to keep funding this.
Apparently. For some reason, we have people like Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and the largest people on the conservative side that are just vehemently against this, and they want Trump to restrain Israel. And he actually came out yesterday saying that they're all third-rate podcasters who are thrown off TV, and that he just aired out all the stuff. He just went ham on them. He just completely destroyed them. And I think that's probably one of his biggest mistakes right now, because these people, the podcast space, these influencers are the reason he won the popular vote for the first time.
And it's a crazy thing to me because I don't agree with most of these folks on almost anything.
Sure.
And it's just so frustrating that I'm like, come on, how are you all getting there before we do? And out here, right, on the sane side of the spectrum, I'm like, why is it that we continue to allow ourselves to have this clear cognitive dissonance when it comes to this issue? We say we're for human rights. We say we're for equality, but somehow that does not apply to Israel, does not apply to the Palestinian people. Why not? And so, like, it's crazy to me because I'm like, Tucker Carlson is clearly a white supremacist.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Clearly. But part of me is just like, damn, you got the white supremacists who can say it.
Right.
And like, we're out here saying we're for equality, but then Palestinians don't get basic rights of peace, justice, and self-determination.
Right.
Come on, right? Like, and so I want us to be true to our ideals. Like, I was so proud to vote for Obama. It was my second ever presidential vote. I was so proud to vote for him because he stood up against war. And I don't know what happened in the next 18 years when we became the party of war again.
Yes, unbelievable. He actually said no to Netanyahu because this war in Iran isn't something new. It's been in the making for 30 to 47 years. He's been trying to do this with so many different administrations, and they've all pushed back. Obama literally said no. They came back again. He said no. But you have Donald Trump for some reason. I mean, I think we kind of know why he did it.
Well, he's a dumbass. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the reason. Like, he doesn't think through things, and so he's easy to dupe.
Yeah, there's a report that came out that said that when Netanyahu came to the White House on the 11th, he said that, well, if we go for Iran's leadership now, there'll be a regime change. The people will love it. And then on top of that, we'll see minimal reaction. And Trump decided that very day. So I think the big issue with Donald Trump is he has completely filled his cabinet and his circle with people who could never say no to him.
Yeah.
Whatsoever. I remember interviewing Lev Parnas, and this is one thing he said to me, and it stuck with me. He said, I worked with the president. The president would have issues, and he would come to his team, and he would present these issues, and he would tell you to go figure out how to fix it. And you would come back to him and list 10, 15, 20 different laws preventing you from getting to the solution that he desired. And his response was, your job is not to tell me how it can't happen. Your job is to tell me how we're going to get it done. So he does not understand the idea of consent or the idea of, when no means no and he can't do stuff.
Well, he doesn't understand that in any circumstance. The reality of this is that the man is the essential endpoint of narcissism. And it's not lost on me that he has now become bloodthirsty after excesses of wealth and power, because he needs to feel his own power to feel anything. And at some point, you end up doing heinous things if that's how you're built. And, when Netanyahu, I was really thinking about this. Netanyahu was in the Situation Room. Can you imagine a leader of any other country being in the American Situation Room?
Yeah.
That's insane. And then, that day he's like, all right, sounds like a good plan to me. And you're like, why is it that for 40 years, everybody's gotten the same presentation, not in the Situation Room, and for 40 years, every other president said no? It's because what Netanyahu did. He just played to his ego.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have no actual cognitive ability, but you got a huge-ass ego, and somebody plays to your ego, then you're going to do the stupid shit they tell you to do. And that's our president right now. And we got to deal with it for another 3 years.
If the Democrats dominate in November, then there's a huge possibility that we will still have to deal with him, but not to the capacity that he's...
I mean, maybe, just maybe, we might finally vote to convict him on one of the many, many things he's done wrong. I mean, the idea that he's committed impeachable offenses, he did that on the first 5 days.
Yeah.
Right? And there's an open question. A lot of folks are debating, well, should we impeach, or what do we do from here? I'm like, listen, if you do not hold somebody accountable for the bad shit that they do not be surprised when other people do bad shit too. That's kind of the point. And we watched for 4 years, nobody really held him accountable for any of the things that he did. And then he came back. And the problem with it is that, the bigger picture issue here is that Trump is just a symptom. He's not the disease. So my worry is that we make the mistake of A, failing to hold him accountable, right, as the symptom, but B, failing to deal with the disease. There is no world in which a Donald Trump should be elected in the first place, because there is no world in which the structural failures of government should hit people so hard that they are willing to look at him and be like, maybe he's a viable alternative.
Wow.
Right? I mean, like, and so in some respects, everybody's like, oh, well, you should be focused on Trump. Don't talk so much about the Democratic Party. I'm like, guys, like, listen to me. At the end of the day, if you are taking money from the same corporations who are causing the problem, and then you have nothing to offer, you cannot just point to him and be like, well, we're better than him. Because at the end of the day, both options suck. He just sucks worse. So I'm trying to offer an option that's actually good, right? What if we got money out of politics? What if we actually empowered unions? What if we actually stood with small businesses? What if we actually spent our money here instead of dropping bombs over there? What if we taxed billionaires their wealth so that we could actually build nice things? What if we actually guaranteed people health care?
Wow.
Imagine what that would mean. You'd be like, here's a shit alternative. Here's a pretty good alternative.
Yeah. You know, the argument to that is, oh, well, we can't fund healthcare, it's too expensive. Or one of my favorite examples, we can't pay for student loans, it's too expensive. The numbers on student loans were $113 billion. During COVID, they gave $750 billion to corporations. So again, the richest 10% rakes in, the bottom 90% gets absolutely nothing.
You know how many billionaires got minted during COVID? And we're just spitting out billionaires. And it's hard for people to afford the first like 100K, right? So this is exactly the point. Yes, we can. We just can't do it if we're wasting our money there or we're not taxing these billionaires here. Yes, we can. Like maths, right? Like I get it. Dollars are zero sum. They're non-fungible. I understand. Like all my libertarian friends are like, money is zero sum. You're like, you're right. But if you don't actually ask people or force people who are the richest people in the whole world to pay their fair share, then you're right. Like you're not going to have the money.
Correct.
And if you take the money you do have and burn it to the tune of $1 billion to $2 billion a day, that raises our gas prices. Yes, you're not going to be able to spend it on healthcare. The money is there. It's not there if we're wasting it over here.
It's not for us. It's to fight other people's war, apparently. But, you know, the problem is he'll never be impeached. And the reason why he'll never be impeached is most of those people that have the power to impeach him were given their position because of him. He packed not just the courts, he packed Congress. He packed so many nominations, so many nominees he got through. So a lot of those people, they owe him their careers. So they'll never, ever, ever vote to impeach him. And we can't get the Democrats to align on this either. So that's a huge problem. So I don't think he'll ever be impeached. That's just my opinion.
I mean, look, if I have anything to say about it, I think it's really important to hold him, his family, everybody who profited off of our government accountable. And I think, again, we got to win the argument about why it's so important to do. Because here's the thing about it, right? Like, he's a dumbass. Imagine what happens when you actually get a version of him who's smart.
Yeah.
And I do not want to be in a situation where we've allowed him to get a pass and that smart version of him comes through and finishes the job.
Yeah,
ending democracy. Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about JD Vance, he has the charisma of a doorknob. So like, there's that, right? Like, so part of me is just like, JD Vance doesn't have like, didn't have like, he got like literally like the aura of a toad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you're not winning an election, my friend. Like, I'm so sorry.
He says the most outlandish things, and I think he's literally just saying it to kind of appease like the dorks in the conservative circles that could then clip it and make a funny video on the internet and make a meme. Whenever he speaks, it just comes off like gimmicky. It just comes off like.
Here's the thing, like, what do you think is going through Usha's head when he talks? She's like, damn, I have to sleep with him. I mean, like, I guess she's pregnant, so I guess something's happening. But like, yeah, like you got to imagine, like, truly zero charisma.
Yeah,
like, none, right? And like, can you imagine, like, he's got brown kids. At some point, he's gonna have to have a really awkward conversation with kids. It'll be like, you know, like, you made your career hating people who are different.
People that look like his kids.
Yeah.
Saying, there was a video of him saying that it's completely okay for you to not want your neighbor to not speak English. So I'm thinking, I saw a photo of him at Thanksgiving. They're speaking Hindi.
His kids' grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you have that conversation with them?
Yeah.
I'm like, part of me is just like, bro, your whole political philosophy is incoherent.
Yeah.
Like, and you're smart enough to know it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. JD Vance is not a dumbass.
Yeah. You know,
JD Vance
he graduated from Yale, no?
He graduated from Yale Law. He's a smart guy. The thing about it is he's like soul corrupt. So like, you got Donald Trump, who's just an ego with no brain. Then you've got a brain like with this like soul corruption for power.
Right.
And I don't know what's worse. Part of me is like, it must suck to live inside your head to know that your entire politics is incoherent with the way you live your life.
Wow.
How do you deal with that every day? Like there's a cognitive dissonance that comes out and like maybe it just sucks out his charisma. I don't know.
Like huge cognitive dissonance. Just absolutely.
He's got to look at his kids and be like, yeah, those are brown kids. They're mine. You know what I mean? And I had brown kids. I have brown kids. I love my brown kids. And I think my brown kids are just as American as everyone else. JD Vance has brown kids who thinks he thinks are less American than everyone else. Like, that's wild to look at your own kids and be like, you don't actually belong as much in this country that I brought you into.
Yeah, that's so sad.
How do you like? Part of me is just like, bro, like it must break you every time you like hug your own kids. Like, I'm so sorry.
One of these days we're gonna see the kids that are gonna grow up and we're gonna hear from them. We're gonna hear their story.
We are, and you know the funny thing about it is, JD Vance is his kids are probably gonna grow up and like do everything they can to undo his politics. I mean, and I hope they will, right? Honestly, because they'll be more coherent than he will.
True. I mean, that is true.
And honestly, like JD Vance's kids, I love you. Like Usha, like get out, okay? Still got time.
Vance, if I know you're going to see this, do not sue me. All right, I didn't know he was going to talk about you like this. I had no idea.
At the end of the day, like, you know, I'm just trying to tell everybody what's probably going on in your head. Like, you can come out and say, I'm sure you probably have JD Vance here if he wants to come on the show. He can come to you and he can explain what he's feeling when he looks at his brown kids and about how he's going to explain to them why his entire political philosophy is inconsistent with their existence.
Wow.
So, you know, come on over here, JD. It's a nice, comfortable chair. Lovely guy. They treat you super well here. But the people want to know.
People want to know. One more question, and I'll let you know. You're a busy guy. Your 3 campaign pillars are
money out of politics, money in your pocket, Medicare.
Politics, exactly. Corporate responsibility and populist policy. But you're running in a state that Trump won by framing himself as a populist. How is your populism different from his, and why should a blue-collar voter in Macomb County trust yours over his?
I'm a peopleist. I love people. I want people to live their best lives. I want people in America to have health care. I want people abroad not to get bombed.
Right.
Like, I want people to live their best lives. Now, you know, it's funny because Michigan went for Trump, not because people hate our politics. It's because we've never offered them a politics that is coherent to their needs. And imagine the act of desperation of turning to a guy like Donald Trump and being like, maybe he's going to help. I think if we offer people a politics and a political vision that really does put them at the core, I think that they're going to vote for it. I think I'm going to win a tremendous number of Trump voters. Well, yeah, I think it's going to surprise a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. After ICE, I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to win Michigan again after what happened to ICE. It's
not him, not Vance, not anybody following that politics. Certainly not Mike Rogers, who, you know, it's like, he's got like country club energy. You know what I mean? It's like not the good country club. It's like the middle tier country club.
Wow.
Where they serve like the little blue pills with the bisque. That's Mike Rogers.
Well, I mean, listen, the polls have you leading. All right. So we hope to see the outcome. We hope you win. You seem to have great policies.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me on. It was a really good conversation.
No, absolutely.
Had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Hope to have you on again.
All right. I appreciate you.
Here's what I took away from 42 Minutes with Abdul El-Sayed. It is clear that he is not a careful politician. He is what I consider a conviction politician. He said some bullshit about his own family's country. He called a genocide 2 weeks after October 7th, when no one else in this race would. He said the quiet part out loud about AIPAC. That directness is his greatest asset and his greatest liability. The questions we didn't get to today, the Khamenei audio, the Temple Israel framing, the Piker Association, the electability math, those are the questions that determine whether his conviction translates to a coalition big enough to win Michigan. We are scheduling a part 2 specifically for these questions. He agreed to come back. When he does, the Allen analysis standard applies. Fair, rigorous, and anchored to the record. Michigan's primary is August 4th. This race will decide whether the Democratic Party's future runs through the progressive left or the institutional center. And this is the first of many conversations we'll have with the candidates who want to shape it. If this interview showed you something you didn't know about a candidate running for one of the most important seats in the country, share it. Every voter in Michigan deserves to hear this. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are in an election year. These interviews will continue. They must. And if you have a candidate you want us to sit down with, put it in the comments. I'll try my best. I'm Brian Allen. This is the Allen Analysis, and never stop connecting the dots.